Hello. So this is my second movie review. It is for Don't Be a Menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood. So yeah, this one is definitely a different change of tone, change of pace than my previous movie review, which is Juice. Um, Honestly, I am very happy I took this class because honestly, most of the references and jokes I wouldn't have gotten before, or may have almost gotten that all the way or fully understand it. So I'm very happy all these movies that we've watched previously made me understand, made me realize all these jokes really did land for me because I was like, hey, I get that. I was like, get that. Um, so first off, it starts off with the opening cutting scene, typical hip hop fashion where they're all just it's like playing some hip hop music in the background, setting the tone, kind of, and then all of a sudden it breaks the mold and it showcases that this is a comedy because it's well, the opening title was nine in every 10 black males will be forced to watch hip hop or growing up in the hood type movie, and then it just basically it's like parodying the fact that a lot of hood films, not hood films, but hip hop films and like films like that are going to be shown to black males. So it just that kind of showcase and sets the tone for what's going to happen further down the movie. So it starts off with introducing the main characters. Of course, there's Lock Dog, played by Marlon Wayans, and Ashtray, played by Sean Wayans, the main characters of the movie. So what happens straight off the bat is it basically parodies Boys in the Hood. First off, there's multiple references to other movies in this movie. What I love the most about this movie is the comedic way it does things. It doesn't do thing too no stone is unturned. Everything is kind of over the top, kind of overcentric, over like just little like comedy, like slapstick. There's a few stuff in the background, like imagery comedy that is like I really appreciated. Um, so what happened is like say I think one of my favorite scenes in the movie was when Lock Dog. So Ashtray gets pulled up on this rival gang by I think his name was Q-Tip. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, his name was Q-Tip. I'm pretty sure um so he gets pulled up on by Q-Tip, and Ashtray is the parody version of the main character in Boys in the Hood, played by Cuba Gooding Jr. Forgot his character's name, but that is who he is parodying. The archetype character where he wants to get out of the hood, wants to start a new life, wants to just get out, essentially. So he is pulled up by these two characters, by this gang led by Q-Tip, and they pull out a gun saying say we're gonna get you, blah blah, and then Lockjaw comes in. Lockjaw comes in, and he was like, "What are you gonna do, huh? What are you gonna do?" He pulls like his belt, is just showcasing a lot of guns. So it almost is like going to make sense, but then it goes a step further, and they pull out a bazooka, and like, oh, we know what we're gonna do, and then it goes even further than that when Lock Dog says, "Oh, you got a bazooka." Oh, guess what? He pulls out. He goes to his mail truck, opens it up, and it's a freaking nuke. So that it's just like crazy, and like that just kind of like that's the scene that I like the most about this movie because it was really funny because like that just like kind of encapsulates what this movie's about. It's just so over the top. It's so like sending that message of like violence. Like this is how like it parodies the black comedy as like for the hip hop movies and the way they are, like the way we're attention to. It also sends very like social messages to the movies themselves and the way they're portraying certain archetypes. One of them being the Korean store owners, and this is weird because in all the previous movies there has always every now and then there's been those the store owners are of Asian descent of some kind, and it was kind of weird. Like I'm very like they put this in there because they noticed that and they realized that's a trend that's happening with all the movies. So they put it in there. The reference, well, I didn't know. We haven't watched it in class, but it was Menace to Society, and I ended up looking up clips, and they parody essentially the first scene in that movie, when what's his name, Kane, and I forgot the secondary characters. They enter the store, and the secondary character, I think his name's Dog or something. I can't remember. He shoots the store owners, and once they are accusing him of like, oh, you're gonna steal, or like they're watching him very closely. So he ends up shooting them once they insult his mother and stealing other stuff, and kind of plays in that stereotype. In this movie, they do the same thing, but they have kind of like the way they do the whole film is like this is like the scene that capitulates that too. They do the comedy, the slapstick, they do the like the visual gags, but they also try and send a message as well. So when that happened, what happened in this scene? So they go into the store, and there's this white guy as well, and he is blatantly stealing things in front of their face, but they're too preoccupied with looking at the black, our two main characters because they're black. So he is literally right in front of their face. Like he gets out, he has his backpack, gets it out, just starts stealing stuff right in front of them, right in front of the like the cash, the owner, and he's just too busy. He's literally right next to him, looking at the black guys. And at one point, he goes even to the register, opens it up right in front of him, and then the Asian owner goes, "Hey." And it's like almost like, oh, I'm realizing this has also happened. This could be anybody could do this, but then he just sees that he left his change on the counter, and just hands him his dollar bill or something. And at the very end, I thought this was funny, a good gag, is when um Lockdog actually tries to shoot him, but he misses everything, part of the gag. And then at the very end, they die, but not because of Lockdog, because of the white guy. And then he literally goes, "It's almost too easy." And then he hints at a OJ reference, and he drops his glove, and they're like, "Oh, he's good." That just encapsulates what this movie, the feel this movie is. It's the tone of it and the way it does it. It parodies so many movies, of course, Miss Society, uh, Boys in the Hood. So, there's a Poetic Justice reference to. He's literally riding around in a mail truck or mail van, and at one point he goes, Who would want to do a cross country trip in a mail van?" And I thought that was so funny because I was like, I get that. I know what they're referencing. Um, so there's not much to analyze here, but like with character archetypes. I mean, yeah, there's of course the main character, the classic wants to get out, wants to have a better life. There's also Lock Dog, who's that typical "oh, I'm rooted in the hood, stay in the hood, die with the hood" type character. They also have the knockoff version of the guy in the wheelchair, Boys in the Hood. Can't remember his name. It's been so long since I watched it. He's in there too, and also there's a guy named Preach. Preach is kind of like he's the way these movies are trying to be to the black audience personified. He's literally this character that is literally just blatantly stating facts about how like society wants black people to present themselves, how they need to do stuff, and the way this movie kind of turns into a joke is he loves white women, and so I just thought that was funny the way they like have a even though it's kind of like a character they're trying like I think had promise, they kind of put a spin on him too as well to showcase hey he's still gonna be a part of this comedy no matter what. Um, so yeah, the one thing is I like there's so much stuff in this movie to unpack, like visual gags and comedy and stuff like that. Um, there's the malt liquor scene, like literally every scene almost in this movie that involves drinking is like little just 40-ounce malt liquor bottles. Looking back at some of the clips I watched to like see some like get some references, like most of the stuff they get is malt liquor, and it's kind of like just showcasing like this is what Hollywood like showcases black people drinking. At one point in one scene, the mom literally they went to the mom's Lock Dog's mom's house and literally just counters and counters of malt liquor. And at one point, she opens the fridge, just all malt liquor, and she pulls it out, starts drinking it right before. Like she just woke up, and I thought that was funny too. This movie just has so many visual gags too as well. At one point, when they copy the Boys in the Hood police scene when they confrontation and that black cop confronts uh, Ashtray, and he's just like they throw him against a truck, and they go throw him against a Bronco, and it's like the blood in the Bronco. You know, it just shows like in the background that it's referencing to OJ and all that stuff. There's one point that I love too as well that made me like really appreciate the class when I watched this movie was he at one point this character kills another character and like a background character, not anyone important to the story, and he literally just crosses off his Radio Raheem, and I was just like, hey, I get that too, man. That's so funny. I mean, I don't know, just like it really appreciates how deep and like how much stuff they like want to unpack when looking at other movies like hip hop and slash gangster hood drama it really make them it really made me appreciate how much work they put in to add all this extra stuff, because I actually had to watch it a second time just to help me under like get some more references and everything, and it was great. Like the references themselves weren't out of place. They felt in time. They felt with the story, it didn't feel out all once like too much, like it was like just enough. It wasn't like, okay, I just this is I need they need to stop, let's move on with the story, let's focus on something else, character development. It just felt all good. At one point they also referenced started up or set it off, I think it was called the movie with the four females. Like I got them mixed up. Anyway, I just referenced them like saying, hey, I want to go work in no factory, and then they rob a bank and stuff, and I thought that was funny too. um as for like the plot, it was essentially like the Boys in the Hood plot, parodying what would happen. Throw mix in with some Menace to Society, because I read the plot Menace to Society. It's because I knew I missed some jokes, and I know it referenced some. It's kind of like a mix, a blend between those two, and everything else is kind of like a throw in as well. The plot was, just to basically this hero wants to get out, he gets out. Well, he does get out in this film, unlike Boys in the Hood, where Ricky doesn't. But anyway, he gets out. He marries what's her name? Can't remember. I just watched the movie. Dang. But he gets out, gets married, and stuff like that. Lock Dog actually has a good ending. Like that's one thing I like this movie is like they all have good endings. There's not that. But yeah. So besides that, the beginning as well helps set the tone. I'm looking at my notes here. I like the beginning because like in the first part it does like the whole narrative thing like the Boys in the Hood does, or I think they did. Most movie most movies do the narrative thing, and he gets killed right off the bat. That helps set the tone too as well. And he's like, "I'm the narrator," and that narrator get the other narrator that would try to replace the first narrator gets killed as well. It's just the absurdity of this comedy is great because it really is in your face. It really never lets you like. If you don't get the visual gags or references, you will get the in your face comedy, the slapstick comedy. It will like shock factor and everything. So it's I feel like it's a movie for everyone. It's not just for a certain archetype or certain character, or if I feel like if I didn't watch all the movies that we have watched in this class, then I would still appreciate this movie for what it is. It's kind of like a Spaceballs airplane esque type movie. And just because I know the movies, it just made it more of a better movie experience. It didn't take away from anything if I didn't. So that's what I love about it. So the characters are basically all like that. The plot was good, characterization was great. So for the film techniques, I would say there wasn't much in there. I watched it first time just to watch it and laugh and everything, and then try to analyze it the second time. Most writing down the characters and some visual gags, like writing references. Um, but for the film techniques, there wasn't much to be seen here. I would say definitely the director. I think it was the Keenan Wayne was the main character, was the director, the third Wayne brother, the older one, was the director of this film, and he really focused more on the whole comedy, like visual gags, slapstick gags, more than like film technique, and that's all right because this is a comedy. No like film critique is gonna like take anything away from this movie for not having the right camera angles or lighting and everything. There was still some things I could find. I remember, okay, there's a scene when Ashtray and his soon-to-be wife are about to, have sex, and it's crooked. When they enter the kitchen, the frame is crooked, and I didn't get that the first time go around, so I watched it the second time, and I realized this is crooked because it showcases that he's out of his element. Like he's out. This is weird for him because I mean, going to the comedy aspect, she brings out food and starts throwing it on him, and and putting that, including it in their foreplay. So she that's just like makes it sets the tone of like this scene's gonna be a little more wacky and everything. That's like one thing I appreciated about like looking for something. I was like, oh, he actually is throwing some stuff in there. Some things also like the camera zooms. There's like when a lock dog was intriguing a girl, the camera zoomed on his face, and it showcased that he's interested. He wants to partake in everything in this girl. Um, so I think there is some like there's not much, but there is some good film techniques. I'm not saying it's like an amateur type thing, but I feel like the director focused more on the visual aspect, like comedy wise, than the visual aspect of film techniques. So I think that's good in a way because if you made it too, artistic, too, I don't know, cross over to like, like Stanley Kubrick type film technique esque, whatever, it kind of would take away from you because you'd be too enamored by the film technique and not just trying to appreciate for what it is and appreciate the comedy aspect of it and everything. So yeah, that's what I got, the film technique. The one thing I did notice that I liked, not the one thing, but another thing I did notice that I thought was actually kind of like serious about this film, besides the absurdity and it mocking the whole fact of how Hollywood portrays these type of movies and the way they overdo it so they can just show like, oh, this we have these movies have violence, we have violence too, but we're going to portray even more because this is we're mocking you, we're mocking these movies because. Or we're not mocking. We're pairing these movies to just show how absurd it is at a certain point because it's kind of turns formulaic. There's the Asian store owner that gets has trouble with the hood types. They get stereotyped. There's those four archetype characters. One wearing out. One is personifies hood personification, and the malt liquor, the violence. That's what this movie does. It amps it up by 10 to really showcase the audience what these movies are about, what they're mostly have, and like, hey, we're just gonna put this in our own way, just to show how these movies are parodied. But there's this one part that I really thought was kind of sincere. Was there's I think the director himself, Keenan Wayne, actually portrays this mailman character, and he goes around when there's actually like an important scene. I remember Ashtray was talking to his little cousin, and it was kind of like it was like a sincere moment, like talking about like this. He has a it's a comedy, so he had a gun, saying, "Oh, we only use guns to solve problems," and then he was saying, "No, you gotta be man about that. And you gotta be actually solve your problems on your own." Blah blah. And then he comes around, and says, looks at the camera straight up, and that's why I like with the camera that's what I like with this movie, like. When it wants to be serious, it can be serious. Not saying there's a lot in this movie, but there is some moments. The Mama character walks in, he looks at the camera and says, "Message," and that's like showing the like audience like kind of like nail on the head type way to do it, but it's still done. It's still like done like to showcase, hey, there are still some important messages in this movie that need to be addressed and talked about. So that's one thing I also liked. And then I just love the references, man. There's so many in this that I appreciated. At one point, when my other movie film, going back to Juice, at the very end when Ashtray actually lives and the gang members die, they go, "Oh, you got the juice now," and then just like I don't know, it just made me appreciate this movie on a whole other level. So yeah, I don't know. That's basically it. There's not much to this one besides the comedy is great, but like it was utilized in the right way. It wasn't utilized in a bad way. It wasn't like mocking the previous movies. It was honoring them and also showcasing these movies could be something more instead of just like formulaic, too, in my opinion anyway. So that's why I loved it. The ending was great, I guess. It just kind of typical ending type thing. Um, and there was fourth wall breaks in this movie every now and then, but yeah, I guess the only thing I'd have to say is this movie essentially was a really good parody of like this. It's what I expected, of a spoof. I've watched Airplane, I've watched what else? I watched the Scary Movie franchise, and it does the same thing. But the thing that's different than like the other parodies, like because over time the parodies become worse and worse, where it becomes kind of like absurd to the point it's like distasteful. This movie never crosses in that territory. It always knows where it should be at. It never goes over that line. Like I said, jokes are being told in the story, not outside the story where it takes away from it. It tells it in story, or it like literally like feels natural, feels like follows the movie flow of the film. But that's those other parodies like Scary Movie 4 and 5, whatever. They just kind of become. That's why I feel like the spoof movie genre is dying nowadays because it just becomes too absurd. I watched this one movie called the Starving Game. It's parodying Hunger Games. And at one point, I was just like, this is just like content like overload. You can't just focus on one thing too many times or like keep playing these same jokes or just like want to make a joke just because shock factor. But this movie never did that. This movie did just enough. I had actually laughed as genuinely a few times, and that's what I loved like all about this movie. Is like it actually got some laughter over me. And essentially, the bottom line is this was a good parody. It did just enough to showcase that hey, this is a comedy. It did just enough to actually send a message. It did just enough to call out some of those tropes, in my opinion. And then the characters, of course, themselves, showed that and personified that. And um, yeah, I would probably nominate this film for like best parody. I mean, I don't know if there's a genre, but I would probably nominate that. Um, Essentially, that's probably it. I love the movie. It was made in 1998, if I remember correctly. So this was before. This was after every movie. I did. I tried to look for a Do the Right Thing reference. I don't. I think I may have missed one. I can't remember. But there was definitely like essentially every movie we watched was at least referenced in this movie once. I think New Jack City was referenced when there was a cocaine scene. I think no, there was a cocaine scene, and then like I think that's when they referenced him. I can't remember when and how they did it, but I remember I wrote it somewhere in my notes, but I can't find it right now. But anyway, I would rate this. I like this movie a lot. I would probably watch it. Show some other people too. It's pretty good. And if they don't understand like the references like I did, it's still appreciated in my opinion. So yeah, I like this movie, and I hope you can watch it if you haven't already. You said you did, so never mind. Um, Thank you. Have a good day.